My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and I work 12-hour night shifts as an emergency room nurse in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm used to blood, screaming, broken bones, and people begging for one more chance. But nothing prepared me for the night I walked into the house my grandfather left me and found another family's couch in the living room, children's backpacks on the stairs, and a bright plastic sign on the bedroom door that said, "Our new home." I stood there in my scrubs, still smelling like disinfectant and hospital coffee, staring at strangers' furniture shoved against my grandfather's old bookshelves. Then a little boy ran past me and shouted, "Mom, the lady is here." The lady. Not the owner. Not Aunt Sophia. The lady. A second later, my own brother stepped out of the kitchen holding my grandfather's mug like he had earned the right to touch it. He didn't look ashamed. He smiled. He actually smiled and said, "You weren't using the place, Soph. We fixed that." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a takeover. But when I called the police, I thought I was simply forcing my brother out of my house. I didn't know I was about to uncover fake signatures, a secret buyer, and a family betrayal my grandfather had warned me about before he died. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. The house sat at the end of a quiet road outside Charleston, not far from the marsh where the air always smelled like salt, mud, and old rain. It wasn't a mansion. It was a two-story brick home with a sagging porch, green shutters, and a detached garage my grandfather had used as a workshop. To anyone else, it looked like an aging southern house that needed new wiring and a stronger roof. To me, it was the only place in my childhood where adults kept their promises. My grandfather, Walter Bennett, had raised me more than my own mother did. He taught me how to check tire pressure, how to hold a fishing rod, how to keep quiet when someone was lying, and how to walk away from people who used love as a leash. 2 weeks before he died, he gripped my wrist from his hospital bed and whispered, "Sophia, don't let them turn blood into a bill." I didn't understand it then. I thought he meant medical debt, funeral costs, practical things families fight about when grief makes everyone ugly. But after the will was read, I understood the first piece. He left me the house outright, not to be shared, not to be negotiated, not to be divided between siblings. To me, my brother had received money from a life insurance policy, some tools from the workshop, and our grandfather's truck, which he immediately sold. My mother said the will felt harsh. My brother said nothing at the attorney's office, but his silence had weight. He sat across from me, tapping his thumb against his knee, staring at the deed like it was an insult written in legal language. A week later, during dinner at my mother's apartment, the pressure began. "A single woman does not need a whole house," my mother said gently, as if kindness made the sentence less poisonous. My brother leaned back in his chair and added, "My kids need stability. You have your apartment near the hospital. You barely have time to sleep, let alone take care of a property." His wife folded her hands and said, "We're not trying to take anything. We're trying to keep the house in the family." That phrase landed strangely because the house was already in the family. It was in my name. I told them I wasn't discussing it. My brother's face hardened for half a second before he smiled again. "You always were dramatic," he said. "Granddad spoiled you, and now everybody else has to suffer for it." I left that dinner with my stomach tight, and my grandfather's warning echoing in my head. 3 days later, I finished a brutal shift in the ER. A drunk driver had hit a minivan, and I spent half the night helping stabilize a teenage girl while her father sobbed in the hallway. By the time I got home, I was too tired to take off my shoes. Then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the security camera I had installed at the inherited house after the will reading. The camera showed headlights in the driveway. Then the feed cut to black. Not blurry, not glitchy. Black. Someone had covered it. I called my brother. No answer. I called my mother. No answer. My body knew before my mind accepted it. I grabbed the folder with the deed, my grandfather's will, and the spare keys, then drove through the dark with my hands locked around the steering wheel. When I arrived, the front door was unlocked. The porch light was on. Music played inside. Not loud party music. Casual music. Settled-in music. I pushed open the door and saw a moving dolly leaning against the wall, cardboard boxes labeled kids' room, master closet, kitchen, and garage. My grandfather's framed navy photo was gone from the entry table. In its place was a bowl of cheap-wrapped candy and a stack of mail with my brother's name written on it. He had not just entered the house. He had begun building a paper trail. I walked into the living room, and that was when his children saw me. They were not doing anything wrong. They were sitting on my grandfather's rug playing a board game. But behind them, my grandfather's armchair had been pushed into the corner like trash, and my brother's sectional sofa dominated the room. His wife came down the stairs wearing one of my old college sweatshirts she must have found in a storage bin. She blinked once, then smiled as if I were an inconvenient neighbor. "Sophia," she said, "you should have called before coming by." Before coming by. To my own house. I asked where my brother was, but I already heard him in the kitchen opening cabinets. He stepped out holding that old blue mug, the one with a crack near the handle. My grandfather drank coffee from it every morning for 20 years. My brother raised it slightly like a toast. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I answered. "You need to leave." His wife's smile disappeared. The children went quiet. My brother set the mug down slowly. "Don't do this in front of them." I almost laughed because that was the first shield he chose. His children. Not law, not truth, not permission. Children. "Then don't teach them breaking and entering is how adults solve problems," I said. His eyes flashed. "We used the spare key from Mom. Nobody broke anything." That was my first shock. My mother had given him a key. Not by accident. Not under confusion. She had chosen a side before I even knew there was a war. I called her right there. She answered on the 5th ring, voice soft and rehearsed. "Sophia, please don't make this ugly." "You gave him a key?" I asked. "He needed help. He needed permission. He's your brother. And I'm the owner." Silence. Then she sighed, the same tired sigh she used whenever she wanted me to feel cruel. "Your grandfather never should have put this burden on you." I looked around at the boxes, the moved furniture, the stolen mug, the children watching me with frightened faces because the adults had lied to them. "No," I said. "He put the house in my name because he knew exactly what would happen." My brother walked closer and lowered his voice. "Careful, Sophia. Once you call people thieves, you can't take it back." I held up my phone. "Then leave before I call the police and use the correct word." He smiled again, but this time the smile was thinner. "Go ahead. Let's see you explain to 2 kids why their aunt threw them into the street." It was the kind of sentence designed to make a woman swallow her rights to avoid looking heartless. And for 1 second, it almost worked. Then I saw the white envelope taped to the refrigerator. It was a printed school registration form. Address listed. My grandfather's house. Move-in date. That day. My brother hadn't panicked. He had planned. So I dialed 911. Part 3. The police came, but the real crime was still hidden. When the dispatcher asked what my emergency was, my voice sounded calmer than I felt. I told her unauthorized people had entered my property, moved their belongings inside, and were refusing to leave. My brother laughed like I had lost my mind. His wife pulled the children close and whispered loudly, "It's okay, babies. Nobody is taking you away." It was theater, and every person in that house had a role except me. My mother arrived before the police did, which told me she had been waiting nearby. She stepped through the door wearing her church cardigan, face full of rehearsed disappointment. "Sophia," she said, "put the phone away before you ruin your family." "My family was fine before my inheritance became everyone's plan," I said. My brother snapped, "You don't need this house. You're alone. We have kids. Any decent person would compromise." I looked at my mother. "Did you give him the key?" She looked away. That silence said more than any confession. Growing up, my brother was always the emergency. His debts became family problems. His mistakes became lessons I was supposed to forgive. My grandfather was the only one who saw it clearly. He once told me, "Your mother loves peace more than justice, and peace without justice is just surrender wearing perfume." Police lights flashed across the windows. I opened the door and handed the officers the deed, the will, my ID, and the camera notification showing the feed had been covered. My brother tried to talk over me. "This is a family dispute. Our mother gave us permission." The officer looked at my mother. "Ma'am, is your name on the deed?" "No," she said softly, "but I'm her mother." "That does not grant property rights," he replied. My brother's face tightened. The officers made him remove his family and essential belongings, warning him that returning without my consent could lead to trespassing charges. Before he left, he leaned close and whispered, "You're going to regret embarrassing me." After they drove away, I stood in the wrecked living room. My grandfather's Navy photo had been shoved into a box labeled garage. His books were stacked beside a trash bag. My grandmother's quilt was buried under children's clothes. That was when shock turned into something colder. I called Caroline Hayes, my closest friend and a real estate attorney. She listened, then said, "Change the locks tonight, photograph everything, and tomorrow morning, check the county records." "Why?" "Because people who move in like that usually aren't only trying to live there, they're trying to establish control." I opened my laptop at my grandfather's kitchen table and searched the county property portal. The deed transfer to me was recorded correctly. But beneath it, I found a pending filing tied to the property. My name was on it. My signature was at the bottom. But I had never signed it. The document claimed I was transferring partial ownership to my brother for family estate equalization. I zoomed in on the signature. It looked close, but one detail was wrong. My legal signature always included my middle initial, Sophia M. Bennett. The fake one did not. My brother had not just broken into my inherited house, he had tried to turn the law into a crowbar. By sunrise, I had not slept. A locksmith changed every lock while I photographed each room, every box, every moved item, every scratch on the walls. Then Caroline arrived with coffee, a scanner, and the look of a woman preparing to destroy someone legally. She reviewed the fake transfer, the police report number, the security camera alert, and my photos. "Sophia," she said, "this is not family drama. This is attempted property fraud." The word made my stomach drop. Fraud. Not need. Not misunderstanding. Fraud. Caroline pointed to the notary stamp and witness line. "The notary may be copied. The witness is probably connected to him, and if he moved in to establish residency, that supports intent." Then my mother called. Caroline motioned for me to put her on speaker. "You changed the locks," my mother said. "Yes. Your brother called me crying." "Did he cry when he forged my signature?" Silence. Caroline wrote on a legal pad, "Keep her talking." My mother finally said, "Your grandfather made a mistake. He was old. He punished your brother for things that happened years ago." "What things?" I asked. Piece by piece, she told me the truth. My brother had borrowed nearly $60,000 from our grandfather over 5 years. Business ideas, credit cards, a truck loan, school deposits he couldn't afford. Each time he promised to pay it back. Each time he didn't. My grandfather documented everything. "He humiliated him," my mother said. "He held him accountable," I replied. Her voice cracked. "You don't have children. You don't know what it feels like to watch your son drown. And you don't know what it feels like to be used as the life raft every time. Then I asked the question that mattered. Did you give him the key, knowing he planned to move in? She cried harder. I thought once you saw the children there, your heart would soften. There it was. His children had not just been present. They had been placed there like emotional hostages. Caroline slid another note toward me. Ask about sale. Was he planning to sell the house? I asked. My mother went silent. Mom, she whispered. There was a developer. He said nothing was final. My blood went cold. My grandfather's house sat near a growing luxury development. I had ignored investor letters for months, but my brother hadn't. He had seen money where I saw memory. How much? I asked. 1.2 million, she said. I almost laughed. So the fake transfer was for the sale. He said everyone would benefit. No, I said. He would benefit first, then decide what scraps kept me quiet. After the call ended, Carolyn asked if my grandfather kept financial records. I remembered his workshop ledger. We found it in the bottom drawer under old fishing licenses. Inside were dates, amounts, promises, and debts in his careful handwriting. On the final page, circled twice, was one sentence. If Ethan tries to use Sophia's conscience against her, remind her that love without boundaries becomes theft. I sat on the concrete floor and cried because my grandfather had seen the storm coming long before I did. Caroline moved quickly. She contacted the county recorder, requested an urgent review of the suspicious filing, and asked for the notary verification. She also told me to file a police supplement for suspected forgery and attempted property fraud. Then she gave me the hardest instruction. Don't reveal everything you know yet. I wanted to scream at my brother. I wanted to send the ledger pages to every relative calling me selfish. But Caroline stopped me. People like him prepare for accusations. They don't prepare for silence. So I went quiet. For 2 days, I answered no family messages. I let my mother think her tears had shaken me. I let my brother think the police visit had scared me. Meanwhile, Caroline and I uncovered the structure of his plan. The notary stamp on the fake transfer belonged to a real notary, but she had never signed that document. Her stamp had been copied from another transaction. The witness signature belonged to one of my brother's co-workers. Worse, my brother had created an LLC 3 weeks before the break-in called Bennett Family Holdings. Its mailing address was my grandfather's house. Then we found the buyer trail. A development representative had emailed my brother a draft letter of intent. The seller was listed as Bennett Family Holdings, authorized representative Ethan Bennett. The proposed closing depended on clear title transfer and occupancy control. That explained everything. He moved in to create leverage. He wanted to pressure me into signing, make the sale look inevitable, and call me heartless if I resisted. So I built my own file. I gathered the deed, will, fake filing, LLC record, buyer email, police report, break-in photos, and pages from my grandfather's ledger. Then I drafted a post titled, "When Family Says Share," but means sign it over. Caroline reviewed it. Don't post yet, she said. Keep it ready. The trap came from my brother himself. Friday night, he left a voicemail. Sophia, we need to settle this by Sunday. I have people involved now, and if you keep acting emotional, you're going to cost this family real money. Meet me at the house. Bring the papers. We can still make sure you walk away with something. Walk away with something. From my own house. Caroline said, let him come. On Sunday, I wore jeans, a sweater, and a hidden recorder. Legal, because I was part of the conversation. Caroline parked down the road as a witness. My brother arrived with his wife and my mother. He carried a folder like a man delivering salvation. He began with the same old script. Nobody wanted this ugly. Granddad manipulated you. My kid's future is on the line. I asked, what papers did you bring? He smiled, thinking I was finally bending. The agreement said I would transfer the property into Bennett Family Holdings for a 30% share after sale, minus management expenses, family debt reconciliation, and improvement costs. He was stealing my house and charging me fees for it. And if I don't sign? I asked. My mother said, then you prove this was never about family. My brother leaned closer. Then I contest the will and make sure everyone knows you threw children out of a home. A home you lied to them about, I said. His face darkened. Careful. No, I said, placing the fake transfer, LLC filing, buyer letter, and copied notary stamp on the porch table. You be careful. For the first time, he had no speech ready. Where did you get those? He asked. Not, those are fake. Not, I don't know what that is. Just, where did you get those? I looked him in the eye. Were you planning to sell my house before or after you moved your kids into it? His wife turned to him. Ethan, he snapped, don't say my name like that. I pointed toward the camera above the porch. I think you just answered enough. Then Caroline walked up the driveway. My brother stared at Caroline like she was a ghost he had personally offended. She introduced herself as my attorney and informed him that the county recorder had already been notified, the fraudulent filing was under review, and the notary had submitted a statement denying involvement. His wife whispered, fraudulent? That one word changed the air more than any police siren could have. My brother started talking fast. This is a misunderstanding. We were trying to create a family entity. Sophia knew about it in principle. Caroline asked, do you have written consent from my client? He looked at my mother. My mother looked at the ground. His wife took another step back. The entire machine of pressure stopped working the moment nobody wanted to be standing closest to him. Caroline handed him a formal cease and desist letter, a demand to preserve documents, and noticed that we would be pursuing civil claims if he did not withdraw every fraudulent filing and provide all communications with prospective buyers. He laughed once, but it sounded wrong. You're really going to sue your own brother? I answered before Caroline could. No, I'm going to sue the man who forged my name. His wife flinched. My mother began crying again, but this time nobody moved to comfort her. Maybe we were all tired of tears being used as smoke bombs. My brother grabbed the papers and said, you have no idea what you've done. Caroline said, actually, she does. That's why I'm here. He left angry, but the real collapse came later because I did not chase him. I did not argue in the family group chat. I did not respond when cousins called me cruel. I waited until the county placed a fraud alert on the property record and rejected the pending transfer. I waited until the notary filed her statement. I waited until the developer's legal department, suddenly terrified of title contamination, sent a letter confirming they had suspended all discussions with Bennett Family Holdings. Then I published the timeline. I removed the children's names. I did not insult his wife. I did not exaggerate. I posted documents, dates, and a single opening paragraph. I was told to stay quiet because this was a family matter. But when family uses your grief, your home, and your signature without consent, silence becomes permission. The post spread faster than I expected. I had worked at the hospital for nearly 10 years, and people knew me as calm, private, dependable. Nurses shared it. Neighbors shared it. Former classmates shared it. One of my grandfather's old Navy friends commented, Walter knew what he was doing when he left it to you. That comment broke me more than the anger did. Within 48 hours, my brother's employer placed him on administrative leave. He worked in logistics for a regional construction supply company, and apparently the words forged property document made his bosses nervous. The coworker who had signed as witness claimed he had been told it was just a family acknowledgement and quickly gave a statement to protect himself. My brother's wife lost 2 local sponsorship deals for her parenting lifestyle page after followers found old posts where she had posed on my grandfather's porch and captioned them, "Finally building the peaceful life our kids deserve." The internet can be cruel, and I did not enjoy watching strangers swarm her, but I also did not rescue her from the consequences of presenting stolen comfort as inspirational content. My mother called me 11 times in one day. I answered once. She said, "You've destroyed him." I said, "No, Mom. I documented him." She said, "His children will see this." I said, "Then maybe they'll learn the truth before they inherit his habits." That was the coldest thing I had ever said to her, and I won't pretend it felt good. It felt necessary. My brother tried one final move. He showed up at the hospital near the end of my shift, waiting by the employee entrance. I was exhausted, my hair pulled back, shoes aching, and for 1 second I was 17 again, being told to hand over something because he needed it more. He looked worse than I expected. Unshaven, angry, desperate. "You need to take the post down," he said. "No. My job is on the line. You put it there. Paige might leave me. You lied to her too. Mom can't sleep. Then maybe she should stop choosing denial as a bedtime prayer." He stepped closer. "You think Granddad was a saint? He hated me." I shook my head. "No. He saw you." That sentence landed like a slap, his eyes filled but not with remorse, with humiliation. "You always thought you were better than me," he said. "No," I answered. "I just stopped paying the price for pretending you were better than your choices." Security opened the door behind me. I had texted them before walking out. My brother looked past me, saw the guard, and laughed bitterly. "You called security on your brother?" I said. "I called security on a man who threatened me after trying to steal my house." The guard asked if I wanted him removed. I said yes. My brother backed away, but before he left he said, "You'll be alone in that house." For the first time, that threat had no teeth. "Alone is peaceful," I said. "Being surrounded by people who think love means surrender is not." 3 weeks later, the civil case was filed. The police investigation into the forged document moved slower, as legal things often do, but it moved. My brother was fired after the company concluded he had misused internal contacts connected to the developer. His wife filed for separation, not because she suddenly loved me, but because she realized he had risked their finances, reputation, and possibly their custody stability without telling her the full truth. My mother's church friends stopped inviting her to planning committees after my post circulated among them. That was not my goal, but reputation is just the public shadow of private behavior. My brother had wanted the house, the money, the sympathy, and the story. He lost all four. The first quiet morning after everything changed, I went back to the house alone. Not to clean, not to photograph damage, not to meet lawyers or police or locksmiths. Just to sit. The living room still looked wounded. There were dents in the wall where my brother's furniture had scraped the paint. Dusty rectangles marked the places where my grandfather's photos had been removed. In the kitchen, the blue mug sat on the counter where my brother had left it that first night, and for a long time I could not bring myself to touch it. When I finally picked it up, I expected to feel grief. Instead, I felt permission. Permission to stop arguing with people who already knew the truth. Permission to stop explaining why theft still counts when the thief shares your last name. Permission to stop shrinking my life to make someone else's entitlement look less ugly. I spent that day restoring small things. The Navy photo went back in the entryway. The quilt went into the cedar chest. The workshop ledger went into a fireproof safe. I changed the Wi-Fi password from my grandfather's old phishing phrase to something simple: boundaries. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but after everything, it felt like a prayer. Later, my niece sent me a message from her mother's phone. She was 13, old enough to understand fragments but not the whole adult mess. She wrote, "Aunt Sophia, did Dad really lie about the house?" I stared at the message for nearly an hour. Every bitter part of me wanted to say yes and send the documents. But she was still a child, and children deserve truth in doses they can survive. I replied, "Your dad made choices that hurt people. The house was never his to promise. I love you, and none of this was your fault." She sent back a heart. That tiny heart hurt more than my brother's threats. Because revenge stories often make consequences look clean, they are not. When someone finally pays for what they did, the blast still shakes innocent walls. But that does not mean you let the bomb remain hidden in your own chest. My mother and I did not speak for months. When she finally wrote, she didn't apologize. She said, "I hope one day you understand why I was scared." I wrote back, "I understand fear. I don't accept betrayal." That was all. Maybe one day she will say the words she owes me. Maybe she won't. Healing cannot depend on the person who hurt you agreeing to hold the mirror. My brother eventually withdrew his claim under pressure from his attorney. The fake filing was formally rejected. The developer disappeared. The civil case ended in a settlement that covered repairs, legal fees, and a recorded acknowledgement that he had no ownership interest in the property. He did not go to prison, not like some people wanted in the comments, but he did lose the thing he valued most: the ability to control the story. People knew. His children knew enough. His wife knew. My mother knew. And I knew, finally, that choosing myself did not make me cruel. It made me free. I kept the house. I did not sell it. I turned the detached workshop into a small weekend recovery space for nurses from my hospital who needed a quiet place after hard shifts. Nothing official at first, just coffee, clean sheets, a porch chair, and silence. The first nurse who stayed there had just lost a patient she had fought for all night. She sat on the porch at sunrise and said, "This place feels safe." I went inside and cried because that was what my grandfather had really left me. Not walls, not land, not $1 million offer waiting to tempt the weak. He left me a place where truth could breathe, and he left me the courage to protect it. So here is the lesson I learned, and maybe someone watching needs it tonight. Family can be a blessing, but it is not a license. Love does not require you to hand over your home, your money, your peace, or your name. When people say, "family first," ask them whose sacrifice they are demanding and whose comfort they are protecting. When they say, "don't make it ugly," ask why they were comfortable doing ugly things in private. When they say, "think of the children," ask why they built those children's hopes on a lie. Blood matters, but truth matters too. Boundaries do not destroy families. Boundaries reveal which parts were already rotten. My brother broke into the house my grandfather left me and told his kids it was their new home. I called the police because I thought I was defending a property. But what happened next showed me I was defending something much deeper: my grandfather's final act of trust, my right to say no, and the version of myself my family had tried to bury under guilt. And if you have ever been told that standing up for yourself means betraying your family, remember this: the people who love you do not need to steal from you to feel safe. They do not need to forge your name to prove loyalty. They do not need your silence to protect their image. Real family can survive the truth. Fake family depends on you hiding it. So tell me honestly in the comments, if your own brother moved into the house you inherited and your mother helped him do it, would you forgive them, fight them, or cut them off forever?